Hello there, Gamerinos and Gamerinas! Welcome to UnicornStorm. This is Rady, and today we are taking a look at Empires Shall Fall to determine whether or not it's worth your while. This game is an Advanced Wars or Famicom Wars clone right to its core. For everyone who doesn't know what to make of this, let me explain. It's a turn-based tactics game where you and the enemy alternate in moving all their units over rather small map screens. Unit types operate on a loose rock-paper-scissors system, where each unit is both strong against certain units and weak against others. For example, light infantry is strong against other infantry types, but weak against armored vehicles, while tanks demolish light infantry, but take massive damage from explosives, regardless of whether they're fired from infantry or aircraft units. There's of course a bit more complexity to this, in that there are multiple unit types that fulfill the same function, but differ in some of their stats, like movement range, armor, or attack strength. Even their means of traveling affect their usefulness in certain situations. Aircraft can move anywhere unimpeded, while tire-bound vehicles can't move onto certain terrain, like mountains. Troops on foot can move onto most terrain squares, but may suffer a penalty to their movement range. There aren't that many different unit types, so getting accustomed to all of them and learning their strengths and weaknesses shouldn't take up too much of your time, especially since most missions restrict your unit selection. And with the more close and personal encounters, due to the small map size, as well as a smaller number of units and rather short movement ranges, most skirmishes feel more like little puzzles, where you need to figure out when to deploy which unit and in which order to attack the enemy troops, to deal the most amount of damage and suffer the least casualties. And this last part is where most of the planning ends up, since in these games, the condition of a unit determines its combat efficiency. So a unit on full health inflicts the full amount of damage, while a unit on half health only deals half the damage respectively. This distinguishes these games from other turn-based strategy, like for example the Fire Emblem series, where a unit is as efficient in dealing damage with 1 HP as they are with 100. And this results in one of the core mechanics in this game type, in where the defending troops are always at a disadvantage, because while it appears in this game that both battalions fire simultaneously, in actuality they're still taking turns. So the defender already suffered some losses before they returned fire, resulting in decreased damage, if they even had some troops left. This health mechanic also affects other systems. Some maps allow you to capture buildings. Only infantry units can attempt to capture a building, and their health determines by how much. You need to generate 20 points to claim a building as your own, so under perfect conditions this takes 2 turns. But if the capturing unit is hurt and only has an integrity of 5, now the process requires 4 turns instead. And the capturing gauge is tied to the unit, not the building, so you can't just swap out units mid-capturing. While this drastically lowers your options in a skirmish, I guess if your capturing points were stored and you could pause and continue the process with a different unit, it might be too easy to dominate after getting to a building first. Now, these buildings do not only exist for the satisfaction of conquering something. These also come with their own benefits and strategic advantages. Residential buildings generate money that you need to heal your units or produce new ones, and barracks, factories or airports allow you to produce more units, soldiers, tanks and aircraft respectively. Now, this game here doesn't really distinguish itself from the Wars franchise. And I guess pretty much none of these games do, because the same goes for Tiny Metal or Mecha Wars, though at least that one has visually a stronger identity. Well, Empire Shall Fall does play around with a bit of horror story-wise. The campaign starts with the Black Empire invading our peaceful nation, and we have to defend ourselves. And while the art design is very clean and pleasing to look at, it's a bit weird in how the Black Empire characters appear to be German or Prussian aristocrats, but their units are all depicted as monsters and skeletons. I mean, their cavalry is Death himself on his pale horse. Weird iconography aside though, it helps in both differentiating allied and enemy units, in addition to the different colors, and it gives each unit type a striking design, making it easier to see at a glance what you're up against, or easily find what you want to pick respectively. After a handful of missions of forcing the invading troops back, you cornered the Imperial army at a mountain pass. And there, you're ambushed by these weird monsters that are extremely powerful and aggressive and seem to have no regard for their own well-being. And soon enough it comes to light that the Empire uses these creatures for their own malicious ends. So it's not just retro-futuristic small-scale warfare, but also some alien horror. And to be honest, this is enough to justify this game's existence. The core gameplay of the Wars-like subgenre is already strong and tight enough that just having more interesting skirmishes is already worth getting another game. And throw in some more unit types that tip the balance of this already rather fragile composition ever so slightly and present another fun and sweet storyline that doesn't overstay its welcome, and it's even better. That is, I hope the story doesn't overstay its welcome. So far, cutscenes have been short and interruptions during a mission few and far between, but I also only have played the prologue campaign so far. After the prologue, you get to pick between the League and the Empire campaign, and it seems this depicts alternate developments after the prologue, with the Empire either achieving a decisive victory or suffering defeat and regroup. This game also has another little feature, nothing genre redefining, but something to give it a bit of flavor. At the start of a mission, you can select a number of upgrades for your units. You don't have enough points to get all the upgrades, so you have to carefully choose what to pick. And those upgrades aren't permanent, but more so part of the current mission's strategy, so you can freely experiment with it. These upgrades are always situational and not pure stat upgrades. Some units can get a bonus to either attack or defense, but only while they are on full health. Some units get a bonus to attack or defense when surrounded by allies. Some get an attack bonus for their next turn after they attacked an enemy or when they haven't attacked in the current turn. The system resembles the XCOM reboot a bit, in that you have to choose one of a selection of 2 upgrades per tier, and by that more so customizing your loadout instead of purely enhancing it. Your units won't get overpowered with this, but it might supplement your strategy enough to give you an edge over the enemy. In addition to the campaigns, there's also a skirmish mode, in where you can select from a variety of different maps and tweak the battle conditions, which is always a much appreciated inclusion if you just want to have a quick battle, try out different units or test different strategies. And the game comes with a handy and easy to use editor, in where you can create your own maps, sculpt the terrain, set down neutral buildings as well as headquarters and manufacturing buildings for each team. This right here promises infinite fun, and to be honest, every game of this type should include an editor like this. So yeah, quite a fun little game that recreates the Advanced Wars style to a T, adds a little bit of flavor and doesn't really make any missteps along the way. There were some moments I didn't like, when the game broke its own rules for the sake of, I guess, the tension during a mission or a twist in the storytelling. Like, one of my units has this radar ability to spot hidden enemies, but at one point during a mission, I couldn't spot some of the enemies that appeared suddenly only after I reached a certain spot. In battles that progress this tightly, where the value of any individual unit is much higher than in games like Command & Conquer or StarCraft, the rules and conditions of an engagement shouldn't suddenly change. I never like it when new enemies seemingly randomly appear on the battlefield. Don't I have scouts for stuff like this? I mean, reality doesn't end at the edge of the battlefield. Now, this can be done right, and this game itself proves this. But other times, this can lead to the loss of valuable units to no fault of your own. Luckily, missions are rather short, cutscenes and battle animations can be skipped, most of it at least. And so it's not that much of a time waste to restart a mission. And as I said, these are more like puzzles, so sometimes failing but getting to know how all the pieces work and behave can drastically improve your chances of winning on your next attempt. So if you're a fan of the Wars-like gameplay, if you have already exhausted the not that abundant well of Advance Wars clones and need something else to satisfy this itch, well, here you are. You can get it on PC or Nintendo Switch. And you can't really go wrong with this game. And with that, I wish you the greatest of days. That's it from Rady, and I hope to see you again on the next game.